The house on Willow Creek. Willow Creek Road was longer than she remembered, the asphalt cracked and overgrown with stubborn weeds. Each bump in the road sent another box sliding in the back of her borrowed pickup. Maya gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. This was it. No more cramped apartment, no more ramen dinners shared with housemates who left passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. Just her grandmother's house, and a whole lot of potential. The house was just as she remembered, a charming but weathered two-story Victorian with peeling paint the color of faded lavender. The porch sagged slightly and ivy climbed the trellis like a determined suitor. A sigh escaped her lips. Okay, maybe a whole lot of potential. After wrestling the first few boxes inside, mostly art supplies, and a stack of well-worn books, she paused on the porch, catching her breath. To her left, the property line was clearly defined by a riot of color. Someone had a green thumb, that was for sure. Roses in every shade imaginable spilled over meticulously crafted stone borders, interspersed with herbs and vegetables. It was a stark contrast to the unruly chaos of her grandmother's overgrown yard. As she admired the garden, a figure emerged from behind a particularly robust rose bush. He was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes framed by laugh lines and a neatly trimmed gray beard. He wore denim overalls and a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong, weathered forearms. "Afternoon," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You must be Maya." "I'm Tom, your neighbor." "Hi, Tom," Maya replied, instantly liking his easy demeanor. It's good to finally be here. The house needs some work but I'm excited." Tom leaned on a garden trowel, his gaze sweeping over the house. "She's got good bones. Your grandmother loved this place. Used to say the walls held all her best stories." Maya smiled, a pang of sadness hitting her. "She did. I remember her telling me stories about the creek, about the town, about everything." A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant drone of a lawnmower. Maya found herself drawn to Tom's calm presence. He seemed to radiate a quiet strength, a sense of groundedness she desperately craved. "Looks like you've got your work cut out for you," Tom said, gesturing towards her overflowing truck bed. "Need a hand?" "I could probably manage," Maya said, though the thought of tackling the rest of those boxes alone made her stomach clench. "But I might need to borrow a hammer later. I seem to have misplaced mine." A smile tugged at the corner of Tom's mouth. "I think I can manage that. And maybe a few other tools if you need them. I've got a whole workshop full of them. Retired carpenter, you see. Keeps me out of trouble." "That's incredibly kind of you, Tom," Maya said, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I really appreciate it." "Don't mention it," he said with a wave of his hand, then turned back toward his garden. "Welcome to Willow Creek, Maya. I have a feeling you're going to fit right in." As he disappeared back into the roses, Maya felt a surge of hope. Maybe this wasn't such a crazy idea after all. Maybe, just maybe, she could make this place her own. And maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to do it alone. Tools and introductions. The half-finished birdhouse mocked Maya from the patio table. She'd envisioned a charming haven for the robins that frequented her backyard, but the uneven roof and precarious perch suggested it was more likely to become a death trap. A closer inspection confirmed her suspicion. She needed a jigsaw and a decent power drill. Her toolbox contained little more than a hammer, a screwdriver with a stripped head, and a rusty wrench inherited from her dad. Swallowing her pride, Maya walked next door. Tom's house, usually shrouded in an aura of quiet solitude, seemed even more imposing in the late afternoon sun. She hesitated at the gate, rehearsing her request in her head. "Hey, Tom, I was wondering if you possibly, could perhaps lend me." "No, too weak." "Tom, I need your tools." "Definitely not." She settled on a nervous smile and a hopeful tone. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the gate and walked up the neatly paved path. The scent of roses and freshly cut grass hung in the air. She rang the doorbell, the chime echoing through the house. The door opened and Tom stood there, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. He wore a faded blue shirt and well-worn jeans, his hands dusted with sawdust. "Maya. Something I can help you with?" "Hi, Tom. I'm building a birdhouse, and I realized I don't have the right tools. I was wondering if I could borrow a jigsaw and a power drill. Just for an hour or two." She held her breath, waiting for his answer. A slow smile spread across his face. "Come on in. I've got more than just those." He gestured towards the back of the house. "My workshop's out here. I'll show you what I've got." Maya followed him through the house, her eyes widening as they entered a spacious, sunlit room. The air buzzed with the faint scent of wood and metal. Shelves lined the walls, filled with tools of every shape and size, each meticulously organized. A large workbench dominated the center of the room, scattered with various projects in different stages of completion. It was a craftsman's paradise. "Wow," Maya breathed, genuinely impressed. "This is amazing." Tom chuckled, pleased by her reaction. "It keeps me busy." "What exactly are you trying to do with this birdhouse?" He picked up a piece of wood from the workbench, examining it closely. Maya blushed, suddenly feeling self-conscious about her amateur attempt. "I wanted to make a nice home for the robins, but it's not going so well." "Let's have a look." Tom rummaged through a drawer, pulling out a pair of safety glasses. "First things first. You can't just dive into a project without the right preparation. And safety, of course." He handed her the glasses. "Tell you what, show me your plans, and I'll help you get started. We can get those angles right." Sparks and splinters. The sharp tang of resin mingled with sawdust motes dancing in the air as Maya fought with the plywood. "Confounded thing," she grumbled, prompting a warm chuckle from Tom. "Hold on," he offered, gently relieving her of the recalcitrant sheet. "There's a knack to this, learned from years coaxing life back into old relics. Sometimes persuasion trumps brute force." With a few practiced maneuvers, a delicate dance of pressure and a strategically placed shim, the wood surrendered. Maya was captivated. It was more than mere craftsmanship, though his skill was evident. It was the easy assurance in his actions, the slight pucker between his eyebrows as he focused. "Incredible," she murmured. "You've got a real feel for the timber." Tom merely smiled, a fleeting expression that sent a tremor through her. Just time served, and a little respect for the grain. He returned the freed piece. "Your turn to tackle the next." As they worked together, shoulder to shoulder, Tom began to weave narratives. He recounted rebuilding a dilapidated porch swing for the residents of a nearby care facility, painting a vivid picture of their contented faces as they gathered on it, sharing stories in the afternoon sun. He detailed the painstaking process of sourcing a missing drawer pull for an antique dresser, a hunt that culminated in a triumphant discovery. Each anecdote offered a glimpse into his world, revealing a man who found solace and purpose in breathing new life into discarded objects. Maya, usually effervescent, became a rapt audience. She absorbed knowledge: different wood types, the correct angle for sharpening a chisel, the satisfying rasp of sandpaper against a rough surface. She also learned about the passing of Tom's wife some years prior, a detail delivered almost casually, yet leaving a discernible cloud in his gaze. Reaching for a screwdriver, her hand grazed his. A sudden spark, like a miniature lightning strike, shot up her arm. She recoiled, heat rising in her cheeks. He seemed oblivious, or perhaps chose to ignore it. But Maya was acutely aware. She saw the glints of silver threading through his sun-streaked hair, the laugh lines etched around his kind eyes, the quiet strength in his weathered hands. She noticed his patience as he guided her, never patronizing, always supportive. This had evolved beyond the simple borrowing of tools. Beyond the confines of her own project. Something else was stirring, a nascent feeling humming just beneath the surface, an ember glowing in the wood shavings. The realization both excited and intimidated her. He was older, more seasoned, undeniably different. But as she watched him, his head bent in concentration over a piece of timber, that familiar furrow creasing his brow, she couldn't deny the pull, a force as tangible as the fragrance of pine, and the prickle of sawdust on her skin. Unexpected visits. The sun was barely above the horizon when Maya found herself standing at Tom's back gate again. She clutched a sketchbook to her chest, pretending it was heavier than it actually was. "Morning, Tom," she called out, a little too loud. He emerged from the shed, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. "Maya. What brings you back so soon? Run out of nails already?" "No, not nails," she said, stepping into the garden. "Well, sort of. It's about this new design I'm working on. For the community garden planters. I was thinking of incorporating some metalwork, but I'm not sure about the structural integrity. You know, stress points and all that." She held up the sketchbook, flipping it open to a page filled with swirling lines and vaguely metallic shapes. "I was hoping you could, maybe glance at it. Offer some advice." Tom took the book, his brow furrowed in concentration as he studied the sketches. "Interesting. Ambitious. But you're right, the supports here are optimistic." He pointed to a particularly precarious-looking curve. "Optimistic is one word for it," Maya admitted, pulling a face. "I was also thinking, coffee." He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "I suppose I could be persuaded." They sat at the weathered wooden table under the ancient apple tree, mugs steaming between them. The air smelled of damp earth and blossoming lavender. Tom talked about tensile strength and load-bearing capacity, and Maya actually listened, scribbling notes in the margin of her sketchbook. His explanations, even the complicated ones, were delivered with a patience she found disarming. "So basically, I need to rethink the whole thing?" she asked, after a particularly detailed explanation of welding techniques. "Not necessarily. Just reinforce it. Add some struts here and here." He sketched on a napkin, his hand surprisingly steady for a man his age. "Struts," Maya repeated, testing the word. "Okay. Struts it is." Later, as she was gathering her things, Tom gestured towards his workshop. "Say, while you're here, I'm having trouble with this old vise. The screws seized. Maybe you could give it a go. You've got younger hands, more leverage." Maya grinned, feeling a surge of unexpected pleasure. "Leverage is my middle name." "Well, almost." Inside the cluttered workshop, the air smelled of sawdust and oil. Tom showed her the vise, its jaws clamped stubbornly shut. She wrapped a cloth around the handle and leaned into it, putting all her weight behind the effort. It wouldn't budge. "Stubborn, isn't it?" Tom said, watching her struggle. "Tell me about it," Maya grunted. "But I'm not giving up." She shifted her stance, trying a different angle. With a sudden screech of metal, the vise released. "There you go," Tom said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "You've got a knack for that." Maya wiped her brow, feeling a strange sense of accomplishment. Just needed a little, optimistic leverage. She caught his eye, and a smile played on his lips. It lingered a moment too long, sending a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the cool workshop air. Whispers on the porch. The cloying sweetness of honeysuckle saturated the air as Maya neared Tom's porch, a jarring contrast to the disquiet gnawing at her insides. It had begun the previous day, an offhand remark from Mrs. Gable at the post office about the busy young woman, so often gracing Mr. Harding's doorstep. Though seemingly innocuous, Mrs. Gable's comment had carried an undercurrent that settled in Maya's gut-like lead. Now, ascending the well-worn steps to Tom's porch, each footfall echoed with the imagined susurrus of neighborhood gossip. She could practically feel eyes peering from behind the veiled windows of nearby homes. Tom was outside, smoothing a piece of lumber, his brow creased in concentration. Specks of sawdust glittered in the fading sunlight. He glanced up, his face lighting with a genuine smile. "Maya. Perfect timing. Ready to conquer those shelves?" "Yep," she replied, her voice betraying a forced cheer. She averted her eyes, studying the wood in his hands. What's that? Mahogany, he answered, stroking the polished surface. I'm crafting well, it's a surprise. Maya managed a smile, though the warmth she usually associated with Tom felt dimmed, replaced by a creeping self-consciousness. She kept stealing glances toward Mrs. Gable's house, a pale yellow Victorian bristling with windows. So, shelves it is. They worked in companionable silence for a while, the soft rasp of sandpaper the dominant sound. Maya struggled to focus, her mind a whirl of Mrs. Gable's words and the imagined scrutiny of the community. Was she overreacting? Misinterpreting Tom's intentions? Making a public spectacle of herself? Finally, she could no longer bear the weight of her apprehension. Tom, she blurted, have you sensed anything different lately? I mean, with the neighbors. He paused, his brow furrowing in genuine confusion. Different? Unless Agnes Gable's bragging about her blue ribbon petunias counts. Not really. What's up? He set the sandpaper aside, his gaze direct and earnest. Maya hesitated, searching for the right words. It's just. I suspect some people might be gossiping. Tom chuckled, a low, comforting rumble. Gossiping? Darling, people will always gossip. It's a favorite pastime around here. He picked up the mahogany, scrutinizing it. Let them chatter. As long as they aren't accusing me of swiping their prized blooms, I'm not particularly bothered. He winked, the familiar spark returning to his eyes. Besides, he added, his voice softening, I treasure your visits. That's all that truly matters to me. His words, while reassuring, failed to completely dispel the sensation that she was treading on delicate ground. The imagined whispers now felt deeply embedded, a loath from beneath the surface. As the sun began its descent, painting long shadows across the manicured lawn, Maya felt a prickle of disquiet, a nagging intuition that the gossip was merely a prelude to something more substantial. A friend's concern. All right, Dish, Sarah pressed, sinking into Maya's outrageously flowered armchair. You've been practically incandescent all week. A boyfriend? Please, anything but another one of your abstract endeavors. Maya worried at the frayed edge of her paint-smeared overalls, finding distraction in the sunlit room where dust spun in golden eddies. Anything to avoid Sarah's perceptive stare. It's complicated terrain. Sarah's brow arched, a testament to hours of primping. Complicated usually means questionable decisions regarding romantic partners, or a secret yearning for Professor Davies. Which pitfall have you stumbled into? Maya rushed to confess. It's Tom. Sarah sputtered, nearly ejecting her sip of water. Tom? Harding. You mean, the gnome enthusiast next door? He doesn't enthuse over them. Maya countered, then her excitement leaked away. Fine, he has one. But that's beside the point. We've been talking a lot. And I think I'm falling for him. The ensuing silence held weight. When Sarah spoke, her tone had climbed several registers. Maya, sweetie. Tom is pushing 60. 60? You're barely out of your teens. That's bordering on nursing home romance levels of bizarre. Maya stiffened. It's not bizarre. He's fascinating. He's kind and extraordinarily gifted. You should see the things he crafts. Besides, he truly listens. He doesn't patronize me like some clueless kid. But Maya, seriously, Sarah entreated, her voice softening with concern. Consider the whispers. Our parents, everyone we know. And further down the line. He won't be around indefinitely, you know. The statement fell like a stone. Maya instinctively hugged herself. The shared studio, the easygoing laughter, the comfortable quiet, it all felt like a soap bubble, vulnerable to Sarah's pointed words. That's low. You're reducing it to just that reality. I'm being pragmatic, Sarah countered, reaching out to grasp Maya's hand. Her perfectly lacquered nails were a stark contrast to Maya's stained fingertips. I care about you. He might be wonderful, but a relationship needs more than just a spark. What about shared milestones? Future aspirations? Can you genuinely picture yourselves, gray and wrinkled together? Maya recoiled, Sarah's concern now feeling like a tight, airless space. Doubts previously lurking just below the surface, now swelled into prominence. Was she being naive? Was she seduced by, what was it? Attention? The novelty of being truly seen. Tom was an anomaly. He inhabited a different sphere, a world Maya knew little about. She studied her hands, the paint marks now just a childish smear. The vivid colors of her artistic vision seemed to dull slightly. Maybe you're right. The concession tasted bitter. Dinner and confessions. Dinner? Here. Maya blinked, surprised. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows of Tom's cluttered workshop, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Tom, usually so reserved, seemed almost nervous. Unless you have other plans, he mumbled, turning away to fiddle with a lathe. I thought it might be nice. Just a simple meal. Maya's heart did a little flutter kick. No plans, she said, perhaps a little too quickly. Dinner sounds wonderful. The aroma of garlic and herbs hung in the air as Maya entered Tom's small, cozy kitchen later that evening. Soft jazz played on a vintage record player. The table was set with mismatched china, and lit by the warm glow of candlelight. Tom, his sleeves rolled up, stood over the stove, stirring something that smelled divine. Smells amazing, Maya said, inhaling deeply. Just a simple pasta, Tom replied, a slight smile gracing his lips. My mother's recipe. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily, surprisingly so. Tom spoke of his late wife, Sarah, sharing anecdotes that painted a picture of a vibrant, loving woman. Maya, in turn, talked about her struggles with art school, the pressure to conform, and her longing to create something truly meaningful. I always admired your courage, Tom said, his gaze meeting hers across the table. To pursue your passion, even when it's difficult. Maya blushed, feeling seen in a way she hadn't anticipated. It's not always courageous, she admitted. Sometimes it's just reckless. Perhaps, Tom chuckled softly. But a little recklessness can be a good thing, don't you think? The air crackled with unspoken feelings. Maya found herself drawn to the warmth in Tom's eyes, the kindness etched on his face. He was so different from anyone she had ever known, a quiet harbor in the stormy sea of her life. She knew it was impulsive, perhaps even foolish, but she couldn't hold it in any longer. Tom, she began, her voice barely a whisper. I have feelings for you. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken desires and potential consequences. Tom's fork clattered against his plate. His eyes widened in surprise, and a flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. He didn't say anything for a long moment, the silence punctuated only by the crackling of the candles. Then, he slowly reached across the table and gently took her hand. His touch was warm and calloused, sending a shiver down her spine. Maya, he said, his voice low and hesitant. I don't know what to say. Hesitations and honesty. The silence stretched, thick and heavy with unspoken words. Maya held her breath, watching Tom. His expression was unreadable, a carefully constructed mask. Finally, he chuckled, a dry, almost pained sound. Maya, he began, his voice raspy, I'm flattered. Truly. More than I can say. But this is unexpected. He gestured between them, a hand fluttering nervously in the air. There's quite an age difference, wouldn't you say? Maya's stomach dropped. She'd anticipated a reaction, but not this wave of, what? Disappointment. No, it was more complex than that. She stepped closer, the scent of sawdust and old books clinging to him. I'm aware. It's not exactly conventional. She managed a weak smile. But it doesn't change how I feel. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, the workshop light catching the silver strands. Society, people will talk, Maya. They always do. And rightly so. It would be difficult. Difficult doesn't mean impossible, Tom. She picked up a small wooden carving of a bird from his workbench, turning it over in her hands. The smooth wood was warm to the touch. And I'm not living my life according to someone else's expectations. He sighed, the sound laced with weariness. It's not just that, Maya. I'm not the easiest person to be around. I have my routines, my silences. His gaze drifted towards a framed photograph on the shelf, a woman's smiling face gazing back at him. Maya recognized the picture from a previous glance in his house. She gently placed the wooden bird back on the bench. I'm not asking you to change, Tom. Just to consider the possibility. To see if maybe, just maybe, there's something here worth exploring. He looked at her then, really looked at her, his eyes searching hers. She saw a flicker of something in their depths, a spark of hope, perhaps, or maybe just a reflection of her own longing. All right, he said finally, the word barely a whisper. All right. But if we're going to do this, we take it slow. Very slow. No pressure, no expectations. Just getting to know each other. Truly know each other. Maya's heart leaped. It wasn't a grand declaration of love, but it was enough. More than enough. I like that, she said, her voice filled with a warmth that chased away the chill in the workshop. Slow sounds perfect. She grinned, the nervousness easing. Maybe a movie night. I'll bring the popcorn. Tom's lips curved into a hesitant smile, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. That sounds lovely, Maya. Lovely indeed. The air in the workshop felt lighter, charged with a fragile hope. The tension hadn't entirely dissipated, but it had shifted, transforming into something else, anticipation. Beyond the Willow Creek. Beyond the Willow Creek, the afternoon sun dripped gold onto the porch swing where Maya sat, sketching furiously in her worn notebook. Tom was inside, a symphony of clanging pots and pans emanating from the kitchen. The aroma of simmering tomatoes and garlic drifted out, a comforting blanket against the sudden chill in the air. The screech of tires on the gravel drive shattered the peaceful tableau. A sleek, silver sedan, utterly out of place amidst Tom's rambling rose bushes and weathered fences, idled impatiently. A young woman, all sharp angles and designer sunglasses, unfolded herself from the car. Emily. Maya watched as Emily marched towards the house, her face a tight mask of disapproval. She didn't bother acknowledging Maya, brushing past her, as if she were a particularly persistent gnat. The ensuing conversation, though muffled, was sharp and laced with tension. Maya closed her notebook, the charcoal smudging her fingers. She could hear Tom's voice, unusually strained, and Emily's, brittle and accusing. When Emily finally emerged, her eyes were red-rimmed. She stopped in front of Maya, her gaze sweeping over her from head to toe with thinly veiled contempt. So she said, her voice dripping with ice, you're the reason he's abandoned all sense of decorum. Maya stood her ground. I don't think Tom needs a reason to live his life the way he wants. Emily scoffed. He's old enough to be your grandfather. This is pathetic. She turned and stalked back to her car, the slam of the door echoing her disdain. Later, after Emily's dramatic exit and a silent, strained dinner, Maya found Tom on the porch, staring out at the creek. The sunset painted the sky in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange. She doesn't understand, he said, his voice low and weary. I know, Maya replied, sitting beside him. The swing creaked in protest. But it doesn't matter, does it? What she thinks. He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. It matters. She's my daughter. He paused. And I want her to be happy for me. Maya reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. His hand was calloused and warm, a comforting anchor. But what about your happiness, Tom? Does that not matter? He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of fondness and resignation. I don't know any more, Maya. I never expected this. You? Me neither, she admitted. But I'm glad it happened. And I'm not going anywhere. The next morning, Maya woke to the smell of freshly baked bread. Tom was in the kitchen, humming softly as he kneaded dough. He looked up, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Morning, he said, his voice lighter than it had been in days. Thought we could use a picnic. Down by the creek. Maya smiled. Sounds perfect. As they walked through the tall grass, the willow branches whispering overhead, Maya knew that there would be challenges. There would be judgment. But in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of their shared world, she also knew that their connection was real, their happiness tangible. And that, she realized, was enough. For now.